Welcome to Wisdom Trek with Gramps. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, and we are on day 2425 of our trek. The purpose of Wisdom Trek is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, and to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. In today's Wisdom Nugget, I'll guide you through the vast landscapes of biblical wisdom. Today we'll focus on Psalm chapter 10, verses 12 through 18 from the New Living Translation. These verses shift from a lament to a plea of a divine intervention and a confident declaration of God's justice. Let's dive in and uncover the rich insights that verses offer. Psalm chapter 10, verses 12 through 18. Arise, O Lord, punish the wicked, O God. Do not ignore the helpless. Why do the wicked get away with despising God? They think, God will never call us to an account. But you see the trouble and grief they cause. You take note of it and punish them. The helpless put their trust in you. You defend the orphans. Break the arms of these wicked, evil people. Go after them until the last one is destroyed. The Lord is king forever and ever. The godless nations will vanish from the land. Lord, you know the hope of the helpless. Surely you will hear their cries and comfort them. You will bring justice to the orphans and the oppressed, so mere people can no longer terrify them. In verse 12, the psalmist cries out, Arise, O Lord, punish the wicked, O God. Do not ignore the helpless. This urgent plea of God's intervention marks a shift in the earlier lament. The psalmist appeals to God's justice, asking him to take action against the wicked and not overlook those who are suffering. The cries of the justice is rooted in the psalmist's faith that God is powerful and compassionate. The pleas, arise and punish the wicked, reflects a deep trust that God can right wrongs and defend the vulnerable. It's a call for God to manifest His justice in tangible ways, to show that He's not indifferent to the cries of the oppressed. In verse 13, the psalmist questions, Why do the wicked get away with despising God? They think God will never call us to an account. This verse highlights the arrogance and misconception of the wicked. They believe that their actions are unseen and unpunished by God. This false sense of security leads them to continue their evil ways without fear of divine retribution. The psalmist's question underscores the moral confusion and frustration felt when the wicked seem to prosper without consequences. It's a powerful reminder that while the wicked may think they are beyond God's reach, their actions do not go unnoticed. Verse 14 brings a reassuring truth. But you see the trouble and the grief they cause. You take note of it and punish them. The helpless put their trust in you. You defend orphans. Despite the wicked delusions, God is fully aware of the suffering they cause. He observes their actions and will hold them accountable. This verse reassures us that God is not blind to the injustices in the world. He sees every act of cruelty and every moment of suffering. Moreover, He is a defender of the helpless, offering hope and protection to those who put their trust in Him. This assurance of God's awareness and justice encourages us to remain steadfast in our faith, knowing that He is actively involved in the affairs of the world. In verse 15, the psalmist makes a bold request. Break the arms of the wicked, evil people. Go after them until the last one is destroyed. This plea for total justice reflects the severity of the wicked actions and the psalmist's desire for the complete end to their oppression. The imagery of breaking the arms signifies a decisive and disabling blow to the power of the wicked. It is a call for God to render them incapable of further harm. This intense language underscores the psalmist's deep yearning for a world free from the tyranny of evil. Verse 16 proclaims the timeless truth. The Lord is king forever and ever. The godless nations will vanish from the land. This declaration of God's eternal kingship contrasts sharply with the fleeting power of the wicked. While the wicked may seem to dominate now, their reign is temporary and destined to end. The psalmist's affirmation of God's eternal rule brings hope and perspective. It reminds us that despite the apparent success of the wicked, God's kingdom is everlasting. The godless nations and their influence will ultimately vanish, but God's sovereignty endures forever. This truth fortifies our faith and encourages us to trust God's ultimate plan and authority. In verse 17, the psalmist expresses confidence in God's compassion. Lord, you know the hope of the helpless. Surely you will hear the cries and comfort them. This verse emphasizes that God's intimate knowledge of the needs and desires of the helpless. It reassures us that God hears their cries and responds with comfort and care. This divine compassion is a source of immense hope for the oppressed. It assures us that our cries do not fall on deaf ears. God is attentive to our struggle and actively works to provide solace and support. This divine comfort promise encourages us to pray and trust in God's loving response. Verse 18 concludes with a powerful promise. You will bring justice to the orphans and the oppressed, so mere people can no longer terrify them. This verse encapsulates the Psalm's faith in God's commitment to justice. It assures that God will act on the behalf of the most vulnerable, delivering them from the tyranny of the wicked. The phrase, so mere people can no longer terrify them, highlights the transformative power of God's justice. When God intervenes, the fear and the oppression inflicted by the wicked are dismantled. The promise of divine justice inspires hope and courage, reminding us that God's righteous intervention will ultimately prevail. As we reflect on Psalm chapter 10, verses 12 through 18, several profound lessons emerge that are highly applicable to our lives today. The first is, trust in God's justice. The psalmist's plea for divine intervention and his confidence in God's justice encourages us to trust that God sees and responds to the injustices we face. Even when the wicked seem to prosper, we can have faith that God will hold them accountable. Second, awareness of God's presence. Despite the wicked misconception that God is indifferent, we are reminded that God is fully aware of our actions. This awareness reassures us that a compassionate and just God sees our struggles and suffering. Third, hope for the helpless. The psalmist's confidence in God's care for the helpless inspires us to put our trust in God, knowing that He hears our cries and provides comfort. This hope empowers us to endure hardship with faith. Fourth, affirmation of God's sovereignty. The declaration of God's eternal kingship amidst the temporary reign of the wicked strengthens our perspective. It reminds us that God's rule is everlasting and that the power of the wicked will ultimately fade away. And fifth, commitment to justice. The promise of divine justice for the oppressed motivates us to seek justice and stand against the oppression in our lives. As followers of Christ, we're called to be instruments of God's justice and compassion in the world. Applying these lessons to our daily lives deepens our faith and guides our responses to the challenges that we encounter. Trusting in God's justice helps us to remain steadfast in the face of adversity. Recognizing God's awareness of our struggles brings comfort and assurance. Holding on to the hope for the helpless encourages us to be agents of support and compassion. Affirming God's sovereignty gives us perspective and peace. Committing to justice aligns us with the God's heart and mission. As we conclude our exploration of Psalm chapter 10, verses 12 through 18, let's carry these lessons with us on our journey. Trust in God's justice, be aware of His presence, hold on to hope, affirm His sovereignty, and commit to justice. By doing so, we align ourselves with the Psalm's timeless wisdom and navigate life's complexities with faith and assurance. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Wisdom Trek. May these insights in Psalm chapter 10 inspire and strengthen you as you continue on your trek through life. Until the next time, keep seeking God's wisdom, cherish each moment, and continue to positively impact the world around you. If you found this podcast insightful, please subscribe and leave us a review. Then encourage your friends and family to join us and come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, creating a legacy. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, and most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal. As we take this trek of life together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and create a great day every day. See you next time for more daily wisdom.